Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, episode 122. Thank you, as always, for making us a part of your day on the audio side, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't done so already, please do subscribe and leave a review. And of course, you can watch the show on YouTube as well, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page that is at Epstein Hitting Podcast on YouTube. Watch previous episodes and watch today's episode 122 discussing off-season prep plan. So let's get into it here. We are on Epstein Standard Time today, bringing professionally evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, and co-host. Listen, you made fun of me off air about my lighting, and you do it every week, so I had to just get that dig in there. How you doing there, kiddo?
I'm good. I'm on the road. Don't give me Epstein Standard Time. Pacific Standard Time now. Throws everything off a little bit. Back in COVID territory where we started. This is where we started the podcast 2 years ago. Back at the ranch. Yeah, that's where I was when we started it.
Oh, shit.
I was actually sitting in a chair over there when we first had our initial conversation and said, hey, we should do this. And then we did our first one.
That's right.
Gardnerville, Nevada.
So that first episode 1, when I don't even remember what we talked about, but that was in 2020. Times have changed when the Astros were coming off. That was before COVID, or was it during COVID? It might have been right. It
was right after. So as soon as COVID hit, we hit the road and drove here.
The Astros were still fan, and here we are.
I know. So, back at it.
Yeah, back at it, getting ready to go, rearing up for episode 122. Again, thank you for joining us today. We're talking about off-season prep plans. We do have a couple of things to get to inventory-wise. I want to touch on Cody Bellinger because we've talked about him on this show before, and you've mentioned some of the mechanical fallacies that he's suffered really since 2020 after that MVP season in 2019. He was non-tendered by the Dodgers this week. What do you think, Cody Bellinger? I'm just going to kind of throw it to you here, playing quarterback, if you will. If you want to feel old, by the way, we're talking about going back in the past. I was on YouTube this morning, Ep. You're not going to believe this. Somebody, I don't know who it is, but somebody out there, he posts like old football games, like from like the 90s, 2000s, and then he does it from like last decade too, meaning like 2010 to 2020. And I remember it like it was yesterday. This was in 2016 because the Lions are playing the Giants today. We're recording this on a Sunday.
Yeah.
He posted the 2016 game, Lions and the Giants at MetLife Stadium, and they're playing that game today in 2022. So if you want to really feel like time is flying and you're getting old.
It is flying. I mean, I remember when Cody Bellinger was an MVP.
2019, felt like yesterday too. What's going on with him? What do they need to fix, Cody and his hitting crew, his hitting instructor? What's going on?
It's been quite a journey for him. From what I've observed, and he's so talented. He really is. And he's changed his swing plane a lot from probably 2020 when he first started struggling. And then last year and then this year, I felt like he's tried to flatten it out because he started to get exposed, right? He had kind of a big uppercut and a narrow base and a big upper, narrow bases kind of tend to having more of a, down and up kind of swing. And so he started to get exposed, right, with fastballs up in the zone. So he's changed his swing plane. I've seen videos of him flattening off his swing plane in batting practice. So I know he's working on that. But his main issue is his rhythm and timing. And I know I'm not the only one that sees it, but he moves very late. We talk so much about, all the Online Academy members. And by the way, I want to thank all my Online Academy members for leaving nice reviews. They left me really nice reviews on Google recently. So those of you that are listening, thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Why can't they leave a review on the podcast?
They don't like you.
That would have been my next
I'll
guess.
have them. You just have to ask. I just have to ask. Anyway.
Oh, that's how easy it is. We just have to ask. Hey, will you please leave us a review? By the way, I ask every week, and we still don't get as many reviews.
You have to send
a
link. You have to send the link. The link is easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to Bellinger, he moves late. He moves very late. He moves after the ball's out of the hand. And so he's essentially striding and swinging at the same time. His foot's in the air, and or I'm sorry, he's lifting his foot and making up his mind at the same time. It's very difficult to do. If you watch just about the remaining 99.9% of major leaguers, their rhythm starts way earlier than his, and it gives them time to read and kind of relax, and they're not going to be as jumpy. So that's his main issue. If he can change that, the concern that I have is that people have told him to do that and he hasn't. The adjustments that I've seen are, oh, he's holding his hands up higher or his bat tip. All of that is style. None of that changes the root of the issue of him moving late. And so I'm hoping that he finds either comfort in a new staff, a new hitting staff, or a new hitting coach, or he just decides to work on it this offseason. But it is the one thing. I don't know if anyone's going to get a deal signing him because of his agent. I think that he's probably going to sign a 1-year, pretty decent number deal just to try to get him, put his backs against the wall so that he can get a huge deal next year if he proves that he can come out of it. But it's been too many at bats since he struggled. It's not like it was just the COVID, half COVID season. It was all of 21, all of 22. He's going to have to turn a lot of heads to do it. Now, fortunately, he does other things very well. He's a good defender. He's got a good arm. He's a good base runner. So he'll help somebody out. I'm just not sure he's going to get a multi-year deal right now because it's a huge risk. And is it him? Is it he doesn't want to change? Could that be it? If that's it, then it's going to be hard to find a team to latch on and invest a lot of money.
Let me ask you this. So do you feel that maybe with Bellinger, the slow feet, quick hands type thing, we don't hear that often. You don't hear that all that often anymore. But do you think that would really come into play for him and could be a true defining factor in getting him back to where he was?
1,000%.
Yeah, because everything seems very fast with him, right? I mean, everything from the start to the swing, it's just all very rushed, as you mentioned. And we've talked about it numerous times, previous episodes and today. That might be the biggest key issue for him. I don't see many mechanical fallacies. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do, but I really don't. I think the biggest thing for him is he's just got quick feet, quick hands, but he's always late.
It's just hard to hit that way.
Right.
It really is. And he's the fastest there is. If we put a timer on him, he's fast from his load to foot plant. And just like all the players I have in the academy, we do like a 3-second drill or a 1,1002 drill. We do that a lot. And I do that with kids that are 9 and 10 years old, just so that we don't have that problem when we get older. It allows for adjustability. It allows for a proper loading and weight distribution in our stride so that we're not, over our back heel or over our back foot too much, over our back knee too much, and then we're not jumping forward too much. So it's a really great drill and a great move, but we have to be able to, it's easy when you do it at an early age. At his age, it shouldn't be an issue because he's a talented athlete, right? I mean, he's at the top of his athletic performance. He's at the top of that pyramid. So I don't think it would be a huge issue for him to do that. I think he has the balance to do it. I think he has the adjustability to do it. He just has to have his mind in a place where he would accept it and work on it, and do it every single day here over the next 2 months before spring training. 3 months.
I do have a team that may fit him for a 1-year deal. And it's a small ballpark. And yeah, I think he would really hit there very well. If you'd like to know which team that is, email us jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. I got to.
Are you going to put him in center field too? Because you don't like the center fielder?
I'm going to put him in center field.
I bet you are.
He's a good center fielder, great athlete. He's a great fielder,
is.
Cody Bellinger. So I'm just saying that he would fit in with a team there on the Eastern Seaboard. I'm not going to say which team it is. I'll leave that to everybody's imagination.
I want pressure. I'd go to Chicago. No pressure, right? The team's not going to win. I can go have a huge year and then sign with somebody bigger.
I have to take some inventory too. I heard on Jeff Fry's podcast recently. He promoted this on his Twitter page. Mike Piazza. He was talking to Mike Piazza. They were going back and forth recently, and he had Mike Piazza on his podcast. And I want to say that I'm right about something. I never like to pat myself on the back.
Was it the Ted
But
Williams thing?
Ted Williams used to go over to Mike Piazza's house and used to watch him hit and give him instruction. So I was correct about that.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
Mike,
It was really cool too.
yeah.
I'm not sure that he did it on a weekly basis. But
I didn't say weekly. I'm just saying he went over his house.
You know what was so great about that clip was Piazza looked ugly hitting, right? It wasn't a pretty.
I thought you meant like his face. Okay.
You watch kids today taking batting practice that are 16, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like what a beautiful move. And this, you see Piazza, he's kind of losing his balance, but you hear Williams say, boy, is he quick. He's got such quick hands. He hits the ball so hard. And those are the things you can't see on video. So when everybody recruits and puts so here's my recruiting video. And you're like, dude, that's a really nice swing. That's a really nice swing. But how does that ball jumping? How does it sound? You can't always, use just video and random metrics. Sometimes you actually have to be there to see it. And I bet it sounded different. They always said Vlad Guerrero, when he hits a ball, it sounds different, meaning senior. And Moises Alou was a guy like that. It just sounded so, you knew who was hitting in the ballpark when he was doing it. And sometimes that makes a big difference. There's some kind of extra energy right at impact that some players are able to generate with their hands and their barrel release that other people can't. And Piazza was definitely one of those guys.
Well, there's a lesson in there, though, that I want everybody to take away from. Number one, it's very simple to me. We are now creating an environment of showcase players who look great on film and trying to hit certain metrics. And we've said this multiple times, rather than the other way around. Piazza's swing looked really ugly in batting practice. You know who else's swing looked really ugly in batting practice? Dustin Pedroia. Mike Piazza and Dustin Pedroia were great major league players. I would take instruction from them any day. So it's got to revert back to what we were doing before. You have an ugly swing in batting practice, that's okay, but you have to still produce in games. I'm not saying that you shouldn't hit certain metrics. You have to, but we're now doing it. Not you, of course, but coaches, other social media coaches are doing it the opposite way around. And some big league organizations are starting to do it the opposite way around. And we need to get back to the other way. Hey, if your swing is ugly in batting practice, that's okay. We need you to produce in the game. Stop worrying so much about becoming a showcase player rather than just becoming an actual baseball player. I'm seeing it too, with people in the field as well. There's videos posted online of guys at short, trying to show off their arm strength. They field, right? But when they go through their footwork,
2 or 3
they
steps.
They do an extra crow hop and they try to get that extra arm strength. You, as a fielder in the infield, this is a little lesson for everybody. In the infield, you love when I give lessons. I know.
I do. Here it is. Every step is what?
Every step is sequencing. That's what gives you the arm strength, not that extra crow hop, right? Because that'll never play at the major league level. The game is really fast. Anyway, sorry. It's
like an outfielder. Every extra step an outfielder takes, the runner takes 3.
Right.
Okay, so you got to get rid of the ball. Yes, but what is going to happen? That's going to show up as this guy throws 99 across the infield, right? So that's how it plays, and that's why showcases do have games, but there's not enough emphasis put on the games. Gamers are gamers, man. Like I worked with players before that. I remember I talked to a Division I coach about, and I said, hey, this kid moves really well and he's super fast. He ended up playing football in college, Division I football, but he could have played baseball too. And the coach told me, he's like, I've seen him. I mean, he looks great, but I've seen him probably in 10 or 15 at bats. And I just want one line drive up the middle. I've seen a few hits and they're hooks down the left field line, or what. He just doesn't square, even though everything looks right. He doesn't square it up. And he was probably right. He ended up playing football. We'll never know. But was he a gamer? Wasn't he a gamer? Right? Maybe he got his heart rate up too much. Maybe he tried to do too much. And you have to see players perform in games. And some players just do. Some players just get into a slower heart rate and they get into a different concentration zone. And those are the guys that that drive in a ton of runs. There's certain guys that drive in 80 RBIs that are number 3, 4, and 5 hitters. And then there's guys that drive in 120. And most of that is mindset. Most of that is relaxation. And most of that is clutch. And you can't teach that. You have to find that. You can try to teach it with mental coaches. But for the most part, that player's probably been like that since he was 14 years old.
Right. Well, anyway, if anybody has any questions, email us jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Reach out to us on social media at Jim Tara and at Epstein Hitting. Hey, this week up on Cross Functionality with Cassie Riley Boscia and I, Cross Functionality, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Wherever you get your podcasts, watch the show on the Softball Strength Academy YouTube page. We talked about training calendars for players. As a coach, creating those training calendars year round for your players. How do you do that from the offensive side? How do you, before we get into our topic today of offseason prep plans, how do you create a yearly training calendar that is best for hitters and is most sufficient that gets them to where they need to be?
All of that's individual to the player. What are their needs? What are those players' needs? Is it Bellinger, right? His needs are rhythm and timing. Yeah. Is it somebody else that might have mechanical issues, a 13-year-old player that has bat drag that's starting to grow and their muscles aren't quite filled out yet and their arms and elbows get left behind? That's probably the biggest issue that I see with players, is that our body, we did a big K-Vest report, assessment down at the lab, right, where we did vertical jump. We tested everything, and then K-Vest, was part of the hitting assessment as well. And the amount of players in that 12 to 14 range that are very lanky, right, they're starting to grow, how much they rotate their hips, but the rest of their body just lags behind. They're not able to transfer that energy from their hips to their shoulders to their hands. So you have to train them accordingly. So, for instance, if it was one of those players that use their hips aggressively, but their upper body lagged behind, and then their hands didn't have any of the sequencing, right? They didn't have any of the kinematic sequencing. So the energy never reached their arms, hands, and bat. Well, that doesn't do you any good. You maybe they go to a hitting coach, or maybe their high school's like, rotate, turn, make sure you have a tight turn. Well, those are all good, but we're not using the body correctly. So those players, right, we put them on an upper body stress plan. You got to do a lot of bottom hand drills, a lot of top hand drills, a lot of resisting with your hips and shoulders. Don't let them go, right? We're not going to use them at all. I want you to, you're still going to use them, but I want you to think about using 90% upper body. Again, going back to Bregman. Bregman's probably the most vocal person about that. This is what I think about, and this is what I do, yet he rotates just fine. His hips rotate fast and his shoulders rotate fast. So overdoing the moves that you need to do. Maybe we have a left-handed hitter that is a right-handed thrower, and their lead arm is pretty good, right? Because that's their bottom hand is their dominant arm. But they're usually, with those players, I see a lot of front leg issues. Their front knee stays closed, their front foot stays closed, their front hip stays closed. And if it stays closed too long and then the upper body starts to go before the hip goes, now all of a sudden we're making pretty good contact. We have a good swing point because our arms and hands are good, but we don't have the power behind it. So we probably are leaving 4 to 5 miles an hour of exit velocity on the table. Okay, so maybe that player, we're doing a stress plan. Look, lower body for the next 2 months. This is the time, December and January. November, December, January is the time to make mechanical changes or rhythm changes. Okay, but we're not worried about timing. So it's the process. It's not necessarily, I want to see spin. I want to see velocity. We're not worried about that right now. We're getting the body into the right position. So again, it depends on the player. The key is during the off season or when it's cold, I'm working on the issue that's going to make me better. And then come, say, mid-January, mid-February, we're starting to get ready for games. Now we hope that that's set in. We still monitor that, but now we're going to crank up the machines a little bit. We're going to hit more breaking balls. We're going to do fastballs, changeups. We're going to do high-velocity fastballs at the belt. Then we're going to do sliders down to make sure we can cover different pitches in different zones. And then we get into our season, and then that's a whole other beast, right? Maybe we're working more timing now. Are we having issues during the season where early or late? So the cycle and that calendar continues to turn over, and it should be different aspects that we're working on. The most important right now in the winter is going to be any kind of mechanical change or barrel swing plane change or rhythm change. So a change where it's not a Band-Aid. We're trying to put stitches in something that needs stitches. And then as we get closer to the season, then we slowly, if we need to get to 90 miles an hour for a high school player, velocity wise, maybe mid-January, we're going to, be at 80 miles an hour. And then next week we'll be at 83 miles an hour. And then the next week we'll be at 85 and then 87. And we're slowly getting there without freaking that player out. So it's a total process. And if you have a good hitting program or good hitting coach or a good facility that you train at, hopefully they're doing something similar in terms of planning for you as a player.
Yeah. So again, subscribe to Cross Functionality, episode 18 this week with Cassie Riley Boscia and I, wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show, Softball Strength Academy YouTube page. You kind of already broke into our episode this week, episode 122, off-season prep plan. I do, before the show, I wrote down 5 elements of an off-season prep plan. So I want you to correct me or, whatever.
Sorry, Jim, I just went off there. I thought that was the main topic we were discussing.
Well, it kind of ties in. Let's see how I did that.
You can fire me if you need to. Collect.
So the first one, rest and recover. You know what? Now that I think about it, that room is. I know. I just came to me. That room. Are you all right? Are you okay? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you choke on your coffee. That room is where you did the first episode, and now it just came to me. I was trying to find it, like, was that the room? And then finally something went off in my head. Rest recovery is number 1. That's the first part of the off-season prep plan. Taking inventory, that's number 2. Diagnose is number 3. And again, we're talking from the off-season from, say, I don't know, beginning of October until, if you're in college, you ramp up, I don't know, mid-February, right? Spring training, mid-February. So beginning of October to mid-February.
Yeah, there really isn't that much time. The college guys, they're back, January 10th.
Okay, so
they're trying to earn a spot. So it's a shorter, it's a short season, unfortunately.
I only got 3 out there. Hold on. So hold on 1 second.
Shut your pie hole. I get it. You can say it, Jim.
Rest, recovery, taking inventory. You would think we'd have better chemistry. Episode 120 fucking 2 here. Rest, recovery, take inventory, diagnose, specify. Right. So now you really get into the meat of what we're trying to do and try and building off the 3 other points of our off-season hitting, and then ramp up / timing. So how are those? I came up with those 5 this morning when I was thinking about and prepping for this show. Am I close? Wrong? Completely wrong? Off? What do you think?
No, you're exactly right. I think rest and recovery after a season. If we look at more like an amateur season, a travel ball season, they're going to be done in August, right? They'll have some rest and recovery kind of mid-August to mid-September, and then there's fall ball. Then they have fall ball, which is really just games. So sometimes I've had more players lately take the fall baseball season off and rest and focus on, start that prep that you were talking about. Let's take inventory. Let's, number 1, rest for a few weeks, rest the arm, rest the body. Then let's get back into it. What's the most important thing? A lot of 15-year-old players that I work with, high school players, it's more important for them to get in the weight room in the fall and eat properly and put on a few pounds than it is for them to get another 30 at-bats or 40 at-bats. So you have to figure out, that's the diagnose. What's going to make me better? We didn't really talk about that earlier. Is it swing plane? Is it timing? Is it sequencing? Maybe it's mass. Maybe it's nutrition and strength. That could be part of it too, where you spend more time doing that. I will say, you put on 10 pounds, you're going to hit the ball way harder than if we get your front shoulder down 1 frame earlier. And we create 5 more degrees of separation. That's not going to lead to as much increase in velocity as 10 pounds of muscle. Okay. So sometimes that's a big, we didn't really talk about that, but that could be one of the pillars that you need to be successful. It might be strength and conditioning and nutrition.
Well, that's kind of the taking inventory part, right? I mean,
yep, absolutely.
Overall, just looking at yourself as a player and where we need to get better. I mean, we're talking this from an offensive standpoint today, off-season prep plans, but you can take inventory really of any part of your game, physically, mentally, whatever, I think.
And it could be, if you're a pro player, it might be, I need to lean out a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked about Sandoval, a couple of weeks ago. He's got to lean out after the season. A lot of times we lose a lot of weight. Gosh, I remember the minor league season. I lost a ton of weight, just 140 games of bad nutrition and not being able to, you go to work out in the morning, you're like, I have zero energy to work out right now because I just got off a bus 4 hours ago. So it's obviously a little bit better now, but maybe it's, I need to get my body back in condition. October, if we're a minor leaguer, October, November, December, and then January, maybe, okay, I'm going to start hitting some more. By the time you get to that age, your mechanics are usually pretty darn good. And you can prep for spring training in 2 months. It's not a big deal to get your swing back locked in. If you're trying to make a change like Bellinger, that's different. But for most major leaguers, they're going to be taking swings, but they're not really working on a lot of stuff. They might be working on hitting pitches in a different part of the zone, but they're not working on any kind of mechanical or rhythm changes. So they're going to spend more time working out, getting faster, getting stronger, getting leaner, or bulking up, or working on their agility and first step. So again, taking inventory, what's going to make me better come mid-February.
Well, also too, if we skip down to the specify part with major leaguers, you talk about getting stronger, you talk about healing injuries, or possibly working around some of those nicks that you may have in your body and just that wear and tear. Mm-hmm. But if you're playing, for example, if you're in the postseason, if you're somebody like a Juan Soto, right, in the playoffs, or whomever, right, or Jeremy Pena, I mean, his weaknesses are now on display for the whole baseball world to see because the Astros were in the World Series. He had a lot of positives to his World Series MVP, but there were still obviously some negatives as
is that good?
A game of failure, right? Now, notwithstanding the fourth part of this, the specify part, at that point, do you think what major leaguers are doing, or at least should be doing in terms of specifying, is understanding where their weaknesses are, looking at some heat maps and saying, okay, I need to attack this weakness in my swing, this small hole in my swing, because that teams, analytics departments, scouting departments, they have that on you, where your weakness is, and they're going to attack you next season.
Genius.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're talking about Pena or me?
No, I'm talking about you. That's exactly what they need to do.
Right? Because there's so much information out there. That I was going to say, I'm sorry. I was going to point out Ryan Howard, though, years ago, 2006, right? He had that MVP season, 54 home runs. The next season, he was still great, but he wasn't as good because teams were starting to simply just attack his weakness. There wasn't as much information back then as there is now. Now they have every little weakness on you. Teams
use your own analytics department to figure out how they would attack you. You use those guys that are crunching numbers and taking different at bats. How would you attack you if you go into your pitching analytics department? Hey, instead of every opponent, how would you attack your own players? That's what you want to work on. That's what other teams, other organizations are going to do to you. So that's a great idea. It's, and again, it doesn't mean everybody hits a spot. Okay. We still have to be able to hit mistakes. That's it. But going into an at bat and knowing, okay, early in the count, I may see soft stuff. Late in the count, I might see hard stuff. Okay. Then we have our plan. Okay, I'm going to sit soft early. And if they make a mistake soft, I got a chance. So that's really what you want to do. When you're looking for mistakes, sometimes if you're sitting dead red fastball on an 0-0 count and you get a hanging curveball, it's hard to pull the trigger, because you're amped up and you're ready for that. And if you do pull the trigger, you'll be like Bryce Harper, who's swung at every first pitch in the playoffs, and you'll foul it off or miss it because it wasn't exactly what he was looking for, but it was a pretty good pitch to hit. Okay. But if you say, you know what, the first 3 pitches might be soft, I'm going to sit on that. So even if the count goes 1-0, I'm still sitting soft. What does a 1-0 changeup look like? What does a 1-0 breaking ball look like? It's usually going to be thrown towards the heart of the plate, ball 2, 3, and 4. There's my mistake, and it's soft, and I'm looking for it, and my rhythm is set up, and my brain is set up, and I'm ready to go. So having those plans, using your analytics department to say, this is how we would attack you. Because usually if you attack somebody differently, it's how do you want to put this player away? Do you want to put him away with breaking balls, or do you want to put him away with high fastballs? So that's going to be the later pitches. How they want to put you away will be the late, the third, fourth, fifth pitch of the at bat. But if you can go 180 degrees to that early in the count, that's when you can strike, and that's when you can do your damage.
Yeah. When do you start on the ramp up phase? When do you start incorporating drills now?
Drills I would start during I know what I work on. Yeah. So if I took inventory And now I'm creating a plan. That's going to be now. That's going to be right now. It's going to be November timeframe. Is okay. I need to work on my bottom hand. I need to work on my top hand. I need to work on rotating less or rotating more, or getting a better load or better rhythm. That's when I start doing drills. And I do drills in a very focused, non-stressful environment where I can complete those drills without reverting to my old muscle memory. That is the key to change. If you take 100 swings today that are perfect, locked in, on my lead elbow isn't pushing back at rotation, okay, and then tomorrow I go hit live and I take 100 swings where my arm does the exact opposite, you're not making any progress. So you need to keep the stress levels down during times of change, and then slowly amp that up. Okay, two weeks from now, let's go ahead and make it a little bit tougher. Okay, we're still performing it correctly. And then a couple weeks after that, let's make it a little tougher. And then we're at the time where we're going 100%. But this is the time when you do drills and you do them in a controlled environment.
All right. So what about, we touched on it a little bit earlier. What about on the mental side? How are you preparing? How do you fit in mentally preparing yourself into off-season prep plans?
I think the take inventory part that you'd mentioned before is a big piece of that. I don't think I'm changing my mental plan. Maybe I have some new techniques on relaxation. Maybe I'm breathing a little bit different. I'm trying to add a deep breath in when I step into the box. I get my sign, big deep breath. Maybe I'm focusing on a part of my bat or a foul pole or whatever it is. Boom. So maybe routine we're working on. I don't think I'm working on a full mental plan as how I'm going to attack a pitcher or how I'm going to attack the season when the season starts. I don't think I'm getting there yet, but possibly in the let's create a routine and relaxation to try to get my heart rate down and to clear my mind when I'm in the box. That would definitely be a part of the process that I would work on this time of year.
All right. Well, I think we pretty much covered everything today. Off-season prep plans, right? I think we're good to go. We checked all the boxes.
We did. It's very important. This time of year is sometimes players want to, and again, it's different for every age. If you're 10, you're probably playing basketball right now, and that's totally cool. Like, play basketball, have a good time. If you're getting into that, 14-year-olds where, okay, I'm baseball and softball, I'm kind of dedicated to that. Now it's really time to dig into it and master my trade. If you're in college, obviously that decision has already been made, so you better get after it. So I have the college players coming into the lab in January 2nd through the 4th. So we got a bunch of, and that's fun. But before that, I'm having conversations with all of them now. This is what do you want to work on? How was your fall? Where did you get exposed this fall? What was your miss this fall? What did you do well this fall? Okay. And then I'm going to set up everyone's training appropriately. So when they get there in January, because they're all going to have to report to college by January 10th, we got to get them locked in so that they can either keep their spot if they're starters, or we can get a spot from somebody else. So that's what that's for. But again, that's a month and a half from now, much different than what they need to work on now. Okay, well, you had this problem. Let's work on our stride and rhythm. You had this problem. Let's work on keeping your shoulder down. So they're taking inventory and working on technique now during finals when there's not a lot. Finals will be in another couple of weeks, but there's not a lot of practice right now. They're doing some small individual work, small group work for fielding and whatnot. So it's very relaxed, and then they're going to slowly ramp up until the time they see me in January. And then I'm going to take them from that first week of January into when they start prepping for the season, which starts in mid-February for college players.
All right. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com, and we will best try to answer those questions. Any questions about today's episode 122, off-season prep plans, or questions about anything regarding hitting, baseball, life, we're here for you.
We are. We love our customers and our listeners.
Yes. By the way, go to the Epstein Online Heating Academy too for a drill library.
Just get better. I mean, it's if you want to get better.
Yeah. If you don't, that's cool. I mean, a lot of people don't want to get better, but
the great part is I'm getting coaches. Coaches, I got to come up with something because coaches, hitting instructors are like, hey, how can you help me work with my players? And it's a really good, the best way to do it is through certification, but I only do that once a year. So it's tough for everyone to get there. but it's like, let me work with you and your player. It's so beneficial, meaning, here's your player. I'm going to evaluate the player you're working with. I'm going to give you feedback. Now we're all on the same page. The instructor is learning, the player is learning. It's not just drills and information. Sometimes, there's a lot of people out there that sell content. You can buy my package of this, that, and the other, but there's no feedback. It's just, here's a drill, do it, and hopefully it works. So what sets us apart is, look, here's drills, but this is why, and this is what the player, and here's how to implement it. So you actually have a person that's helping you through the process. So if you need help, we're here for you.
Yeah. And if you want to understand what Ep is teaching, why you're doing certain drills, go to Epstein Online Hitting Academy. Don't go to Twitter, where people like to think they're really smart and use scientific terms that nobody understands. So then it tricks people into thinking, wow, that person's really smart, I should go to them for instruction. It's not the way it works.
You got to be able to implement. That's what makes us different. Is
the key word.
We can implement the words so that everyone can do it.
Yeah. Implement is the word of episode 122. Next week, episode 123, we're going to do something a little bit different. This will be a lot of fun. Facing an ace. So Ep and I, we're going to come up with an ace at the major league level of a pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about, we're going to grab a report, right, from baseballsavant.com. It's not going to be, we're not going to create a report ourselves. We just simply don't have the time. Nevertheless, we could, but we don't have the time. So we're going to get our information from baseballsavant.com. And Ep and I are going to go through, he's going to go through with me as if I was the hitter. It feels like you've done that before, but nevertheless, he's going to go through it with me, and we're going to talk about how to approach facing an ace and how to put together a hitting plan facing that ace for at least 2 at bats. And that ace could be a Max Scherzer. It could be, I don't know, a Justin Verlander.
Yeah, Verlander. Sure.
We're going to do that next week, episode 123. What do you got coming up at the lab? Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Lab, we're just prepping for our college guys coming in next month. And then our weekly classes now. All our instructors, we did the big assessment. So I'm urging all of those players to spend some time with our coaches down there to go over what it means. What is the K-Vest? They get reports, and they do that at different showcases too. Well, hey, coach, I got this on the Blast, and I got this on K-Vest or Rapsodo or whatever, and the kids have no idea what it means. So it's, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation and talk about it so that we can get better. So that's what they're doing this week. It's kind of a slower, we're not going to do a lot of hitting. It's Thanksgiving week, but schedule time with your coaches to go over all your results.
All right. Perfect. Great job today. Episode 123.
You too, Jim.
Thank you very much. I sense the sarcasm. Happy Thanksgiving.
There wasn't. You were sharp today.
Always. All right. We will talk to you next week, everybody. Episode 123. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Have a safe, happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you next Monday.